one question I keep getting asked on Instagram is how I do my texture stacking, and this is a video I'm sure a lot of people were kind of waiting for, and I've been delaying posting it because I wanted to make sure it was on a platform that I really wanted to continue building on. And I think for me, YouTube is that place at the moment. I think this is the place where I can give the most amount of value and to reach the most amount of people. So if you're here to learn about texturing, this is a very raw, uncut, but very thorough video on how I normally build my texture trees within Blender. I've always learned through watching other people kind of mess up and try and seeing how they get over hurdles. And so this is pretty much a very raw live video of me going through the entire process that I normally go through. I'm definitely going to be making some more videos on this channel, so it'd be worth kind of keeping those notification bells and subscribing. I really appreciate everyone that's been kind of supporting me over on many of the platforms, especially on social medias over the last couple of months. So yeah, I just want to say a humongous thank you, but also I'm going to try and deliver as much value as I can to everyone who has been supporting me. So this is one way of doing that. Thank you so much again, and I really hope you enjoy this video. Yeah, I thought it'd be good to start off with texturing, especially because I've had a lot of people message me regarding texture stacking and how I normally go about it, particularly on this scene actually, which is why I've brought it up, which is the ramen got. It's part of my figure got renders that I was doing for my brand, and I had a lot of questions about how I was doing the materials on this. So I thought I'd basically, first of all, let me just shrink myself. Okay, so first of all, I thought we'd just go through the scene in general anyway, to begin with, and then basically I'll open a new Blender file and I'll make one of these materials, I haven't decided which one yet, from scratch, and I'll basically just talk through how I normally go about texture stacking. And even though you might not be making an egg, for example, I think the principles in this video will still be kind of useful to whatever you're making, because I pretty much do the same thing for every material I make. I don't really know where this method of texturing kind of came from, but I've always just done the same way of stacking textures. I normally have kind of a ideal route on how I like a material to finish and start. A lot of the times it's not always procedural, sometimes it's using texture maps and also stacking on top of them, but can I just say, yeah, this does look very scary at the bottom, but I'm going to break it down, and it's not as bad as it looks. It's a lot of repetition and just changing slight things. But yeah, I think I'll go through the egg, because this one, if I remember correctly, was mainly procedural. I think the only thing I really did differently was add a mask. But yeah, to run through basically the textures that are involved in this, I'm going to go through this tree just in general very quickly, and then we'll start from scratch and I'll make it to how it looks here. So first of all, this scene, can I just say, is pretty simple. I think, like I said, it's the angles, the lighting, and the textures that really help carry. Obviously, it depends on what you're creating, but for this example, the focus is on the ramen bowl in the middle, so you obviously have a high depth of field, and you don't really have to care about what's happening on the side, on the corners of the render, because the focus is this. Particularly at the back, actually, I don't think yeah, you can literally see spaghetti falling out the bowl. It really is that like Simpson meme of Homer getting grappled at the back because you don't need to see what's behind. So yeah, let me run through these. So, and I'm aware this looks pretty scary, so please do not get scared by the node tree to begin with. I assure you, it is not as bad as it looks. Okay, so the first material is the base kind of egg white. I can see that I've used a bit of ambient occlusion on this, mixed with a mask to mask out the yellow yolk in the middle. And then essentially every single stack that it goes down the tree, it adds a new kind of feature to the material, or it adds something. For example, the Musgrave is adding kind of these small discoloration in the white of the egg. And I think all these things combined really help sell realism. I think I heard someone say before that making something realistic isn't about being perfect. It's actually focusing on the imperfections of the material. Because I think oftentimes when 3D renders are too perfect looking, as in like the walls are painted perfectly, the wood flooring is a sharp angle against the wall. Those are what kind of subconsciously make it automatically look 3D, in my opinion. And I think a lot of the times what sells realism is about the imperfections in a material and what the kind of real world materials have. Nothing is produced to the absolute perfection unless you're going for like a super just off the rack manufactured product. You need no fingerprints and nothing. It's it's one of those kind of product shot renders. Then I can understand, but I think you have to really focus on getting the imperfections perfect, which is kind of an oxymoron, but it makes sense in my mind to have to really have like home in the detail on materials, the way it looks in real life, because at the end of the day you're trying to mimic real life, so having those references are going to be super important. So yeah, let's start from scratch. And also I do have screencast keys at the bottom right, which is kind of weirdly on the right. Oh, there we are. Okay, cool. So yeah, I've got screencast keys, so if you do want to, if I'm going a little quick on some things, hopefully you'll be able to pause the video and go backwards and see what it was. Yeah, I think this will also be helpful just to go over how I normally set up my Blender files. I normally have a routine of every time I open a Blender file, I do the exact same thing every time, which I probably should actually set it. Now that I think about it, I should probably have it set up like that automatically, but yeah, I always obviously switch to EV, switch to GPU. GPU, obviously CPU, dependent on whether you have a more powerful CPU or GPU. I so happen to have a more powerful GPU, so that's the one I go for. Always click the noise. Fill. No, don't need to go to light paths. Okay, film, transparent, color management. Always change it to high contrast. Sometimes I change it to very high at the end. But I normally leave it on high. Then over here, environment, open, and then open a HDRI, good choice. I am opening Urban Alley. You can go to HDRI Haven and just kind of scroll through a bunch of their stuff. And now let's do the delete the cube, re-add the cube, boom. I don't know why I deleted the camera actually. Okay, so to be honest, I don't think I'm going to need the camera. I think I'm just going to just do it from here. So, like I said, here's some reference. We always have reference. I think, by the way, you can just add these in as Shift A references there if you didn't know how to do that. Sometimes I can't believe I have to actually look at my keyboard to. I forgot what Shift A because I normally just click it without even thinking about it, but you have to kind of change your ways a little bit when you're doing tutorials, which I haven't done many of, so bear with me. So yeah, we're going to be doing the egg, which I think is a fairly easy shape, and also it could be something you can follow at home as well. You can also do the textures with me. UV editor. Okay. So, to create the shape, I am going to first of all subdivide. I'm going to keep the square itself. I'm going to be pretty rough with this because I think today's not about modeling, it's about texturing. So the quicker the model, the quicker I can get onto the texturing. Okay, so I think I've roughly got the shape here of the egg. I've been very quick with it, of course. Shade smooth. I'm just gonna. I think that's alright. It's looking very eggy, which is at least the vibe we're going for. Okay, let's start on the textures. So pulling up the references next to it is going to be super helpful when building from this. Right, so let's just think about it in stages of kind of how a material, I guess, gets dirty or how it gets destroyed over time. And if you think about it like that, your first thing you'll ever do is obviously build the base color, because that's like the fundamental that everything's built upon. So let's do that. So we're making purely kind of this white of the egg, which is actually kind of like an off-white colour. If you have a look at the colours over here, it's kind of like an off-whitey, more yellow. And eggs are actually made out of that weird, kind of squishy-looking, see-through-y kind of almost skin-like texture. Where if you were to shine like a torch through it, it would have a lot of transparency. And obviously, Blender is built off mimicking real world materials, so you have things like subsurface scattering, which is exactly what your skin is. Basically, it has the ability for light to shine through it. It's not like a super flat, super what's the word? Opaque. It's not super opaque. I like to start with the white because it's easier, but it's not always going to be super white. It's going to be white and a bit yellow. So I'm going to add a gradient texture in order to create that kind of gradient of material. I mean, gradient of color. It's not going to be just one color. I think this is where the imperfections come in. Like, the egg is never going to be one flat color. It's just not. It's just not going to be one flat color. Everything has little tiny changes in them. So that's what I like to add into the renders themselves. Let's add the yellow and the white. So this needs to be a lot more white. And crank this up a bit. I think the subsurface is really helping. It's gonna be pretty shiny, but I also want the shine to not be as uniformed. So I'm gonna add an image texture, and I'm gonna pick. You won't be able to see this. I'm in my files right now, but I'll show you the document. Whatever image I'm using in a second. Let's pick something like this. Okay, so that's the material I'm using. Now this is just some rust random scratches. I can provide it in the actual description if you want to follow exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to put it into the roughness. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, I forgot to UV unwrap. So apply your subdivisions, UV unwrap, project from view. It's actually cube project, so it has a bit nicer sides. There we are. Okay, so all the areas that are black will show up as super shiny. All the areas that are white will show up as super like matte. And I don't want it to be super shiny or super matte. I kind of want it to be in a bit of the middle, in the grayer areas. So I'm gonna almost kind of equalize the colors, but have slight changes in them. That is way too shiny, so let's move away and go a bit more matte. Let's move this up. Let's add a lamp so we can actually see what we're doing, what changes are happening. And it's really hard to tell because of the ambient occlusion. Oh, there we are. See the slight reflections on the surface. That's not looking. I kind of want this to be subtle anyway. It just look a bit like juicy, I guess. And a lot of this is going to be covered by the texture stack. This is the base layer, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, that's fine. I think for now that's good. I'm happy with that as the base color. Just added a little transmission, see if that. Oh my god, that's crazy. That's like some like jelly baby. Oh my god. Cool. Okay. I'm actually gonna leave the transmission at about 0.269. Let's leave that lamp there. Okay, cool. So next bit is the yolk. So let's mix shader, add an image texture. I'm actually gonna put down that transmission. It's a bit too dark. Yeah, let's just turn it off. I changed my mind. Okay, new. Let's make it 2K. Okay. Now make sure you're clicking on this. Let's call this yolk. Okay, so let's make the mask. So this will be to mask out the yolk, so then you can work on the texture separately to the white. So let's go over to the top, texture paint. Now all I'm going to do, pretty simple, will literally just color in the area where the yolk is. Now I actually would kind of prompt you to not be neat on this, because if you look at some of my references, also we'll fix these areas in a second around the edge that are coming in. If you look at my references, the yolk kind of goes really not in a perfect circle. So kind of the least perfect it is, the more realistic, funnily enough, even just like little gloops on the edges where the yolk is like overspilled a little bit. There we are. That'll do me. Okay, so image, save as. Call that yolk. Go back here. Now, first of all, let's deal with these annoying edges, which is kind of why I projected from view to begin with. So highlight one ring and then control plus 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 plus. I'm just gonna move them to. Just gonna move them to an area that's out the way of the yolk, including the back. Even though we won't be seeing the back, but still, I'd rather it not be there. Okay, cool. So there's our mask in place. So we're going to add that to the FAC, or FAC. I've actually realized I've never said that out loud. I've always just read it. So I don't even know if it's been pronounced FAC or FAC, but okay, cool. So now if I just pick any random material, if I mix them together, now you get the white that we originally created, and this is our new yolk material. Let's add a color ramp to here, and this will kind of make it more defined or less defined. I don't want it to be as defined because I think it looks more realistic when the edges aren't as sharp. Okay, so let's have a look at the yolk in the references. Okay, so this one's actually pretty dark, and this one's actually quite yellow. I prefer the look of the darker. This one looks kind of like an orange to me. Like it looks like a yellowy orange. Very juicy. This one's quite dry. But I like that dryness. I also like the crispiness of like the edges in here. Might actually see if we can replicate that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a Musgrave texture linked to a color ramp. hook these two up into the base color. That's nice. And basically just move it around until you get something that feels kind of like the color distribution of the yolk in here. You see how this bit is like really dark. This bit's really dark. This bit's kind of a lighter yellow, and here's really light yellow. So I'm gonna try and split that up. I think going pretty high on scale would be the move. Something like that. And then increase the detail. That's nice. Okay, so let's get that super dark dark yellow. Let's get the lightest yellow. Kind of mix them together. I'm actually going to change the dimension because I think it looks more realistic being blurrier, the transition between the colours. Okay, so I'm actually going to hook the Musgrave up to a colour ramp and a bump. Just to actually, obviously that looks horrendous, let's tone that way back. Just so it kind of gives the impression as though a little bit of the lighter egg has kind of seeped through into the yolk. Not gonna lie, I also want to mix in with this a gradient. Okay, so I want it to be spherical. It's actually quite cool. Because, yeah, you can add almost this kind of like moon effect. We kind of want that. That's actually really nice. Okay. Let's then grab a mix shader, which is in mix. There we are. Mix color. 1, 2. Let's put that into the base color. This cannot be white. This needs to be like a real yellow. I'm actually going to go down here and up a look to super high contrast. Okay, so I'm actually kind of happy with that. So I've kind of moved a bunch of the colours, that's pretty much all I've done, and I've changed the bump, so I've inverted it so it's kind of more on top of the surface rather than digging in. I now want to move on to these cracks in the yolk. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a Voronoi. Because if you see in these Voronoi, you get these like, try add a colour ramp. Yeah. So you can kind of see these like these geometric patterns that appear. We use these, duplicate another bump, put these two into the height. Let's have a look. Actually, let's remove this. Let's just see how it looks by itself. Mix color. Let's put this here. And then let's grab this gradient that we created earlier, which was really nice because it kind of singles out the center area. Whoops. Should be on the other side. Yeah, you see how kind of like you create this circle in the middle? That's actually perfect. So let's do that. Let's mix these two together. Let's subtract. So that it only appears. It needs to be the other way around. So flip these. So now it'll only appear on the edges and not in the middle. Okay, let's add that to the height. Okay, so I'm just messing around with the Voronoi a little bit. Now, ignore the fact that none of this will be in show, it'll just be this bit here. I think these little cracks are actually pretty nice. I think they kind of do the job. Let's move the gradient down a bit. Ah, there we are. Okay, so boom, cracks. Okay, so let's mix this in with our original bump, which can go in the normal. And then I want to turn this bump right. I don't want it to be as noticeable. That's nice. It gives it like that kind of wrinkle. You see that kind of wrinkly effect here? That's lovely. Okay, cool. Just going to turn the bump down a little bit more. I've made it slightly transparent as well. Now, to be honest, I could go a little further and actually sculpt in these proper, like, cracks. Let me just see actually if we can add a displace. Add vertex. Let's grab some center vertex first. Let's do these ones. Assign UV. Just real quick assign just to this. It's crazy. Oh my god. Jesus. To be honest, it's actually quite nice. A little additional kind of surface grooves. Oh yeah, cool. I like that. It gives kind of those ridges around the edge, which also help for our next part. I'm going to add another mix shader, and now this is my favorite node, geometry node, color ramp. Let's put the pointiness as my absolute favorite into the FAC or FAC. Pointiness basically means every time the geometry is really high, raised or has edges, it kind of points out all the areas, which is really nice in this case because we added a displacement. So let's get those grooves. So now that's essentially a mask. Now we can add a principle now just to show you. Just pick a random color. and switch them. So yeah, it kind of highlights the areas that I've got a really high ridge. And I just want to add these kind of like white bits. This goes like super light. Now these are barely going to be noticeable, but I will notice them, so that's what matters. Okay, nice. So you kind of just highlighted some of the grooves in the areas. Now, to be honest, it could look nice as like an orange or something a bit darker. Yeah, I do actually prefer it better with darker shades. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that. I think that's good. Right, so let's move on to this little part here. First of all, actually, before we move on, I kind of want that edge of the yolk to be a bit raised so it looks like it's separated from the rest of it. So the way we do that is by adding another bump and taking these two, and you can either duplicate them or just grab this from up there, but for the sake of neatness, let's just grab this. Let's add it to the bump. And there we are. Oh, that's really nice. So now it's added like a raise around the edge. So it actually looks separated from the white. Actually, that's really nice. Glad I did that. So it's already looking pretty complicated. We're only at like a third of the texture stacking. Okay, next. Right, let's move on to this part. So the white part of the egg. What I want to do is add a Musgrave. So mix shader, Musgrave texture, color ramp, into the height. And you can kind of see here, I think a bit better, where there's kind of like a difference between the yellowing egg and the whiter egg. So I want to add that. So let's do it. To be honest, the yolk texture should probably be on right at the end. So I might switch that at the end. I'm just ignore the fact it's going on the yolk right now. I think that just needs to reorganize the node setups and move it so that the order's a bit better, but just try and ignore it. So actually this is automatically kind of done what we wanted. And this is just the default texture overlaying on top of the small. That's actually really nice. Yeah, the kind of the default principled. Like I haven't even had to change this, but I might make it. Let's have a look. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the only thing I might do is just copy paste the roughness that we had previously. And I'm also going to do what we did on the last one and add our mask into the height. And then add that into the normal. Double color ramp it. So there's like a slight edge. Yeah, that's really nice. So that's really stable. And pretty stable. Also pretty. Now we could actually duplicate this process, but get this really nice liquid, almost like it's spilled over. Yeah, the yolk has. So let's duplicate this. We kind of want the same kind of shapes. Do another mix. Having a look. Right, let's try and copy what they've done over here. So it's kind of like taking over the edges. There's too much detail in this. Yeah, it needs to be like that. That's nice, but I want it to be the black instead of the white. It's fine, because we can actually just use the invert. Boom. That's inverted. Principled. Change this to red so you can see. There we are. Yeah, something like that. That's perfect. That's really nice. Okay. So now we want to create this like dark, like almost like extra liquid that's overflowing. So it's gonna end up being kind of this slight material, but we want the underlay to also show through. The only way to do that is by turning this black and making it not black, because that means it's cut out completely, but making it kind of grey. So then you can still see what's underneath, but it looks like there's a layer on top. Now we want this to be super shiny. And I think I'm going to add an image texture so it's not quite as mirrory. So the texture I've added is called fingerprints. So we added into the video. Let's put that into the roughness. Color ramp. And the reason I picked this one is because it kind of has, there's so many small little reflection-y areas. So these fingerprints can kind of act as those little small reflections that you can see in the liquid. So we want it to be not quite shiny. Kind of like that. Okay, so now I want this side to be darker and kind of fade in. So the way we do that is, I mean, you can kind of add another Musgrave, to be honest. Musgrave, color ramp. Musgrave into color ramp. That's actually good. Okay, so I'm actually going to match the colour and lower the saturation a little bit. A bit more yellow. Just kind of looking at the reference as closely as I can, colour-wise. That's looking good. Okay, so let's add bump. Connect the mask again like we did before, add it to the normal so it creates this kind of ridge. Invert it so it looks like it's on top of the yolk? Question mark. Add color ramp. So adjust the color ramp a little bit so you get that nice edging. Okay, cool. I'm actually going to add a hue. Increase the saturation a little bit. Maybe not that much. Okay, so now I want to make all these little red dots, which I can do by Voronoi texture, color ramp, and this into here. That's really cool. Maybe I'll add the dots in a sec and add whatever this is. We'll just see how that looks. Principled. That's pretty nice, actually. It kind of looks like there's egg yolk seeping through. Boom. Add this. Mask to the bump. Invert it so the cracks actually have like a. Feel like it's actually like a cavity. Nice. That's good. Okay, now we'll add the little red bits using the same Voronoi. Color ramp. Voronoi into color ramp. You can create all these like spots. Scale it out. And we want them to be quite separated from one another, so it's not bad. I kind of want them to be a bit stretched. So they kind of look like little chip things. Rotate. Doesn't really do much. That's fine. Okay, add this into the mix. Another principled. Red dot. Moving around. It's too many, they look too uniform. I think I'm going to add some particles on top at the end of this as well, just to add some actual like 3D red bits, because I think they're giving too like 2D vibes at the moment, but still nice in texture. Okay, so now I kind of want to white, put white back over it. just to mix all the things that we've added underneath together a little better. So let's add a Musgrave like we did before. Colour ramp. Okay, and this time I'm gonna mix it. Mix the colour. God damn, it's 1:40 AM, sorry. Did not realise how long this has been going on for. 1:40, Jesus. Okay, anyway, let's grab the mask. Add it into here. Subtract. Perfect, so now we've got rid of the yolk. Add this into the mix. Principle. Put that over. It's quite nice. And we want this to be like the upper shell kind of the egg. Bomb. Add this into the bomb. Add color ramp. And increase the dimension. Scale. Detail. Just have that, it kind of looks like it's peeling around the edges. I'm gonna make it not as bright. I'm not gonna change much of this, to be honest. I think it's kind of fine the way it is. Get a subsurface. Yeah, cool. So I think that's pretty much there. As you can see, the tree is crazy. Oh my god, yeah, that's mad. The other thing I want to add very quickly is the little particle seeds on the top. So I'm literally gonna just speedrun this because I know this video is super long already. Some of that. Shade smooth. Let's give it that kind of. That's gonna annoy me. That's kind of not as rounded. Let's give it like that kind of coloring. It's kind of got more pointier. There's a seed. No, let's just go a little bit further and just add gradient. color ramp. Nice, that'll do. Then go over here. Then in, let's go to vertexes. Let's add just kind of, where do we want it? Mainly over here and over here. Assign. Particles, hair, advance. Let's go to vertex group, into the one picked. And then render as object. Instance this one. Take rotation. Global X. But randomize the, actually, be normal, and then turn it manually ourselves. Now, obviously, it's way too many. So, okay, these are too like fat around like the bottom area. So I'm just gonna make them less. Letting plain so I can see them a bit better. And then what I want to do, I'm going to go back in the original material. And the last thing is mix shader, ambient occlusion, color ramp. Ambient occlusion will basically cast the shadow in the areas where an object is touching it. So in this case, we want the seeds. So let's use that as a mask. Principled. Swap the shaders around. Let's give it this like juicy red. A bit too high. Just go more orange actually, I've changed my mind. Okay, so we can actually copy this. But this time, choose red and change the shape slightly. And then go back to the particles. First of all, let's increase the scale randomness. That's nice. Okay, so let's add these as a particle as well. Particle system, let's copy the same one, but copy the instance so it changes. Density this. Object this one. Different seed. Oh, that's nice. It's really nice. Now I am actually just going to increase the scale randomness so they're not as crazy. I think that's it, pretty much. There we are. So if I add this back into our original scene, okay, so I'm just going to add it into position, like so, and then there we are. So egg 1 and egg 2. So I hope you learned a little bit. I've realised how late it is. This has gone on for, bruh, it's nearly 2 a.m. So that's crazy. Okay, cool. So I hope you enjoyed. I know it's a little long-winded, but it kind of goes through everything that I normally go through to create a texture. But yeah, catch you in the next video. Thank you. Good night.